Welcome to the Actually You Can podcast. I'm Miff Galloway, a performance coach passionate about supporting ambitious and high-performing women just like you who know they have untapped potential just waiting to be unleashed. If you're looking to massively uplevel your performance in all areas of life, you've come to the right place. My goal on this podcast is to take you beneath the surface so you can connect with yourself on a deeper level while providing you with valuable insights and the tools necessary to navigate life's challenges and go after your goals with strength, clarity, and wisdom. If you're ready to uncover the truth which lies underneath so you can recognize your powerful feminine leadership style, pursue your goals unapologetically, and thrive in every aspect of your life, hit the follow button and get ready to explore the incredible possibilities that lie within you. Together, we'll uncover your next steps in achieving peak performance, because actually, you can. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Actually You Can podcast. Today, I have the absolute pleasure of connecting with Laura Hoorweg, who is an esteemed international spiritual counselor, intuitive coach, and psychic medium. With an uncanny ability to pinpoint crucial details across all areas of your life, she brings a unique blend of insights and clarity that resonates with your deepest intuitions. Laura's true passion lies in empowering individuals to live their lives with authenticity and passion. She helps align their journeys with divine missions and assists them in discovering and nurturing their spiritual gifts. With her guidance, today we are going to uncover how you can unlock your fullest potential and embrace a life filled with purpose and joy through her unique approach. So welcome to the show today, Laura.
Oh, thank you. It's really great to be here.
I'm so stoked for our conversation today. And so to kick things off, you talk about individuals having a divine mission and nurturing their spiritual gifts. For those who might not have heard these terms before, are you please able to share a bit more about what is a divine mission and what are spiritual gifts, potentially using some examples of your own or ones you've supported clients to uncover?
Okay, great. It's a good place to start. Actually, before we come into each lifetime, into each incarnation, we spend time on the other side and we decide what it is that we want, the purpose and the service that we want to deliver in this particular lifetime. So that's really your divine mission. It's what you come, the purpose, the goal, the intention. You can use any other word, mission. I like the word mission, purpose. It's all the same thing, but it's what you had decided before you came in that you were going to do in this particular lifetime, what service you were going to offer the world. And that's what you come in with. But unfortunately, what usually happens with most of us is we forget, we lose that sort of drive, that purpose, because of, society, sometimes, our own families, religious backgrounds, cultural backgrounds. There's all kinds of things that kind of brainwash us out of actually our authentic self, who we really, because your purpose is really part of your authentic self. Okay. That's the person that you decided to be before you actually got here. So that is your mission, your purpose, whatever you'd like to call it. Now, in terms of your spiritual gifts, everybody has different spiritual gifts. They often come in kind of larger categories, shall we say. For example, there's the group of healers. Okay. There's a group of way showers. And there's also a group of teachers. And some people are really, what should I say? How should I put this? Disruptors. There's a good word, disruptors, which really means you're here to initiate major changes on the earth, okay, in whatever category. So within each of those categories, there really is specific areas that, for example, with the disruptors, with the change artists, shall we say, okay, you might be coming in to cause some kind of political change, okay, in the way that our politics is controlled. Or you may be coming in to change the way that individuals or groups of individuals are viewed in the world. Okay. That's a couple of examples. I think teacher is pretty obvious. Okay. You come in with a mission to teach others in service of others. Again, it can be in any field that you'd like. Healers, again, it's pretty obvious, but there are very, very different healers, and people heal in different ways. There is like actual physical healers, um, massage therapists, energy healers. But you can be a healer in very, very different ways. I consider myself a healer, okay, being a psychic medium, because I help people heal both from things that have happened to them in this lifetime and things that have happened to them in past lifetimes. So that's kind of that pretty much that answer that you're looking for. So there's a lot of variety, but there tends to be those major groups. Now, way showers, a lot of people may not know what that means. That's people who come in to set huge examples, a good to show people how to live, or how to conduct themselves in the world. Okay, I would say somebody like Gandhi would be a way shower.
Mm.
Okay, and pretty much all the avatars like Buddha, and you can even look at the Christ, and what's oh no, I'm having a bit of a brain issue, but you get the idea. Some of the big religion, and it's not just religious teachers, way showers, I should say, but it's also people who have come in, even some people that end up being at the head of major new thought um, groups. You could look at them as way showers as well. So I hope that answers your question.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. And one of the thing I had, my light bulb moment came up when you were talking about purpose and connecting to authentic self, is that's predetermined before we enter this lifetime. And so for people who are like, oh, I'm not sure
Yes.
what my purpose is or anything like that, it's like, you have one. Don't you worry. There is one out there. It sounds like the real work is going
Oh,
back to your point, is
absolutely.
uncovering
Absolutely.
it.
Everybody has.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if someone's feeling disconnected from what that purpose is, how would you support them to reconnect with it? I love that term, by the way, reconnect, not just not find it. It's
Reconnect.
there.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
Well, that's what it really means. It really means digging in and touching that and finding out what that is. The best place to start is to start that reconnection with your authentic self, because as I said, your purpose is part of that authentic self. Okay. So anything that helps you get in touch with the person that you decided to be when you came into this lifetime is going to help you to define and connect what that purpose is. Now, as I said, there's big general categories. Um, Say, for example, if you come in as a healer, okay, because people can relate easily to
Mm.
that. That is the energy or the vibration that you come in under as being a healer. But once you get here, it's really up to you. This is where, free will comes in. What kind of healer you become, and where your specific interests or focus are, that's really something that you get to decide here and now. Okay. So it's that connection with your authentic self gives you a very idea of the broad segment that you came in to serve under. And then
Mm.
you develop that. That's part of your free will, part of your creativity as you go along here in our 3D world.
Wow,
Does that
I
make
love.
sense?
Yeah, and it makes the whole process seem a lot less daunting because you're not trying to refine it to one really specific thing. I like the idea of going, okay, a first step could really be trying to identify which category you sit in. And then to your point, exercising the free will, going, what type of person do I want to be within that
Yes.
category? I think that's a really powerful approach as opposed to going, oh, I want to be a coach. I need to be this sort of really specific type of
Yes.
coach and this is my niche and that sort of stuff. So I really like that perspective.
Well, it's interesting too, and you kind of have to open up your mind. I use
Mm,
this example because it really hits home with a lot of people that don't have a lot of experience kind of in the spiritual realm.
mm,
You don't have to, talking about healers again, okay? You don't necessarily have to be a body worker or an energy
mm.
worker or be, doing what I'm doing in terms of, being a spiritual counselor or a intuitive coach. I know, I know healers that are realtors. Okay.
Yeah,
Now
okay.
that may seem like a total disconnect, okay? But it isn't because and I'm not by any means saying all realtors are healers, by the way. This is a small segment, but I've met several of them, okay? And their healing mission is to get people into proper home in the proper area that's going to support their life and their energy to the greatest extent, okay? So, in that sense, they are helping people to heal and to reconnect to the energies that they need in order to support whatever their particular mission turns out to be.
Yeah, so the way that that's making sense to me is it's more like these categories are potentially a lens through which you can view the world and you can bring that lens to many different situations.
Many, many different situations. Yeah. And that's, part
Yeah.
of the creative spark, part of the divine spark, part of our free will. Because And that can change over time. Like you might, again, we're on the healing example. So let's just say, you come in and you connect, you get connected and you find this really, there's kind of a drive or what you're attracted to. This is one of the biggest ways to really help to reconnect with your mission is to be observant, to be mindful and see what attracts your attention. Okay. Because that's a huge hint from the universe. Whatever is attracting your attention is something that you need to focus on. But you may start out in one area of a category, and over time, over your lifetime, you might get guided to do some different things within that same category. So it's not like
Mm.
you start one thing and you're kind of, you know, crazy glued to that decision. Most people I find end up going through everything's about evolution and evolving. Okay. Nothing in this universe is static. We're all evolving in our own ways. You have to remember that we're not humans having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. Okay. And if
Yeah.
you look at it from that perspective, it sort of turns everything on its head.
I'm curious to hear from you. Have you always known that you were a healer, or did you have to go through your own journey to uncover where you sat and where you are today? Because you're in the physical, logical world, and then all of a sudden you have such a strong connection to the spiritual world. I don't think it's one that people would
Yeah.
naturally stumble in. Well, a lot of people from my experience haven't naturally stumbled into. What was your journey?
I had a very long journey and this is, I think, true of most people. Your spiritual journey isn't really linear. It's more like it goes up and down and up and down. I had several experiences in childhood and young adulthood that led me to have a totally different view of the world other than the one that we've been taught. Okay, the rational, you know, uh, to look at things in a very, very different way. And for 30 years, I was in advertising and marketing in the corporate sector. So I wasn't exactly, but I did lots of other things. Portions of my life were very, very directed at spirituality and growing in that way. Um, but other parts weren't. And I came through to things in very different ways. I had a very scientific bent, and
Mm.
I started finding out the connections between spirituality and science, mainly physics. One of the real watershed books that I read when I was still quite young was a book. It was written by a physics professor, and it was called what was it called? It's an old book, but I think you should still get it. And it's a really interesting book. It's called Seed of the Soul. by
Mm.
Gary Zukav. And it's looking from through the lens of physics and looking at spirituality in a different way. And the thing that I love now, like that was written a long time ago. I can't remember exactly. Probably, I'm just guessing, but probably in the 90s,
Mm.
somewhere in that realm. Uh, Maybe even the late 80s, but definitely in that's kind of the time period. But it's interesting now that I came into spirituality is somewhat through that lens. But now, oh my goodness, with the new quantum physics and everything, they are proving through science a huge amount of spiritual beliefs that have been around for thousands of years. And now they can actually prove them through quantum physics, which I find really interesting.
What are some of those beliefs? Because I'm sure there's people out here who have spent, the last 30 to 40 years of their life living in the rational world, and they're like, "Cool, I like I can appreciate what you mean by this idea of spirituality. It's just still not making sense to my rational and logical brain." What are some of those spiritual beliefs that are now being confirmed
Okay, well,
by?
one of the big ones that just kind of come out is this whole idea of multidimensionality, okay,
Mm.
and different Earths and different universes, and the multi-universe theory of that all the universes are kind of nested within each other, and they all exist in the same space. They're just at different vibrational levels. This is very science. This is pure science, okay. And they have now discovered through quantum physics and science that that is true. There are there's more. I've been told through my guides and angels that there's actually more, but at this point, they've discovered that there are 13 distinct multiverses. So that's
How
pretty
cool.
hardcore science. Yeah, it's pretty neat. I love that.
We could go down lots of rabbit holes with that, but that's probably another podcast for
Yes,
today.
we could.
And so you mentioned that you started, I guess your spiritual journey started through science and particularly physics. Where did it go from there? Was it as simple as you started reading this book and you were like, "Oh, there's more out there," or how did that journey continue on?
Oh, okay. I had a couple of very powerful experiences when I was young. Like I said, um, the spiritual journey is not linear like this. It goes up and down. Sometimes you're really involved in spirituality, and other times you're just involved in our 3D lives, and we're not really that. When I was about 15, I had an incredible out of body experience where I was basically ejected out of my body on top of a cliff. I was on top of a cliff. I was actually rock climbing and rappelling. And I was up on the top of a cliff, I don't know, 200 feet or 300 feet foot cliff. And I rocketed out of my body. And all of a sudden, I found myself looking down on my cohorts and my climbing instructors on the cliff. And I'm like way up in the sky somewhere. And I'm like, whoa, this is cool. and and just as I was kind of getting used to that, I rocketed up again, and all of a sudden I found myself outside of the earth, looking down on the earth. Okay. And this was a cool thing for me because I'm going to age myself right now. I grew up in the era when they were landing on the moon. And it was the first time we ever
Yeah.
saw the view of the earth from outside of the earth. Okay. And a lot of the astronauts talked about how being outside the Earth and looking down onto the Earth changed their entire perspective of everything. Okay. And I suddenly realized why that was so powerful. And just as I was really getting into this, all of a sudden, again, I rocketed up and I found myself, what I can only say, out in the universe because I could see all
Mm.
these different spiral galaxies and stuff like that. And I was like, I was blown away before, but now I'm really blown away. Okay. And I'll tell you too, the feeling of this was I was totally not afraid. I was totally at peace. I felt totally safe and I felt totally expanded. Like my sense of self was infinite almost. Okay. So I was out there and I was just really grooving on this and I was waiting to see what came next. of course. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, it was like somebody just grabbed me and threw me back down and into my body. And it was a horrible feeling because our bodies only contain a small portion of our soul. So it was basically like taking something gigantic. Or no, you would, oh, let's, okay, let's imagine taking a basketball and trying to shove it into a Coke bottle. That's exactly what it
Oh,
felt
wow.
like, and it actually took me several days afterwards, after the experience, to become totally comfortable again in my body because I had been in such an expanded state. So this experience and what it caused this coming back into my body was one of the instructors. I learned about this after I sort of came to my senses again back in my body had he got a little bit scared because I was a little close to the edge, and he had grabbed the back of my pants and like, physically yanked me back from the edge. So when he did that, that's when this rapid descent back into my body, okay? So that experience when I was 15 totally turned everything on its head, okay, in terms of the way that I viewed the world. So that was the start. Then I had other experiences, and then I started getting into reading. And actually, my spirituality quest kind of was wrapped up in also personal growth. I was into personal, reading
Mm,
personal growth stuff. And whenever you're into personal growth, you can't help but stumble on all kinds of just spiritual writings. So that's really
100%.
how it started.
Yeah, and it sounds like for you, that moment there, it made you stop and be like, hang on, there's something here. And so I'm thinking for people who might be feeling disconnected from their authentic self and from their mission, it's paying attention to what are potentially some of those moments that they've had where they've been like, there's something here, or a moment that's changed their life forever. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely, and it can be anything, like, I call them, like, aha moments or, a
Mm,
lot of people call them epiphanies, and it doesn't have to be something so kind of grand and kind of off the scale like that experience for me was. It can be, just noticing something and kind of getting a aha moment and going, that really doesn't make sense unless you look at it from this perspective. Okay.
yeah.
So that's where a lot of people start. One of the best ways to connect to your authentic self and to get more hints and things about your mission is meditation. Okay, there's two things that
Mm,
I recommend more highly than anything else, or three things: meditation, yoga, or any kind of martial arts, because they're all connected, like Tai
mm,
Chi, even the standard martial arts. I know a lot of martial artists that's kind of how they made their connection to spirit. And the third thing is nature, because that was another huge part
yeah.
of me getting connected to my authentic self and was discovering through nature. Again, that started happening when I was young, because when I was really young in my teens, I did a lot of backpacking and camping and canoe tripping, and I was out in the wilderness. Okay, not just being outdoors is great, but there's a bit of a difference between being outdoors and being in the wilderness. Okay, being in unspoiled
Yeah.
areas, and it's the awe and beauty and the energy. Okay, everything's about energy. Okay, you're gonna hear me keep coming back to energy and the energy of being in pristine natural settings that can really trigger people to have all kinds of experiences. And that's what triggered mine because I was in the
Mm,
middle of nowhere up in Algonquin Park in Ontario, which is a huge provincial park or state park or whatever your term is. Okay. And in the middle of, wild nature. And that's what triggered that experience. So, if you want to have more experiences, that connection to nature is also extremely helpful.
I'm just reflecting on some of my friends who I know who have gone on their own spiritual journeys, and you're 100% right in terms of they've been simply meditating. Some of them do martial arts, some of them do yoga, and they spend a lot of time in nature. And the reason I'm sort of laughing is because I think especially in the 3D world and the workplace, that sort of environment. It's like to uncover your personality or your strengths. Here, take this personality profile test. Take all these things that are external to
Oh,
you
yes. Yeah.
and let's put a label on yourself. And what you've just mentioned is
Yeah.
tools that are essentially all free, but they don't involve other people. They just involve you connecting with yourself. And it reminds me of this study that I heard. I haven't actually checked the validity of it, but it makes for a good story. So let's just roll with it. It was essentially this there was this group of participants and they were offered the opportunity to sit with themselves for 15 minutes or to receive a series of electric shocks. And 60% of the male participants opted for the electric shocks, and 40% of the female
Yeah.
participant opted for the electric shocks. It's like we have this aversion for sitting with ourselves when actually that could probably be the best thing that we could ever do for ourselves if we're looking to reconnect with purpose, if we're looking to understand ourselves
Yeah.
better. But for some reason, we just don't want to do it.
Well, I honestly, I'll tell you what the reason is, because most
Yeah.
people are afraid. Okay.
Yeah.
It's
100%.
basically, there seems to be this human trait that we're really afraid of who we might be, what we might find out. Okay.
Mm.
And I'll just say, there's some people that are really resistant to things like meditation. You
Mm.
don't even have to actually formally meditate, but just like you were saying, go out in nature and just spend 15 minutes quietly by yourself, leaning up against a tree and sitting on the ground or something like that, and contemplating your navel. Okay. You don't even have to
Mm.
actually meditate, but it makes it better because when you meditate, we're going to go back to the energy. It drops you into a
Mm.
different energy, a different vibration because you get into that, I think it's theta state. So don't take that for 100%, but you get into the state that's really just above sleep. Okay, into that
Mm.
state in meditation. That's why it opens you up. It relaxes your energy. It gets rid of all the monkey mind stuff, so that you can actually receive information. And most of the information you're receiving is from yourself, or your higher self. If you want to look at it
Mhm.
that way,
Yeah.
from your soul. You're what you're doing when you get quiet. And like I said, doesn't matter. It doesn't actually have to be meditation. When you get quiet, that is when your soul can actually speak to you. Okay. Because when we're in our
Mm.
3D world and we're running from pillar to post and we got, 18 projects on the go and, you've got everything demanding, and especially these days with all the electronics, everybody and everything is demanding of our attention. And we just need to get away from that so that we actually can hear our own authentic voice. And you can call it anything you want, from, your gut feelings to intuition to universal guidance to listening to God. Whatever your language is, it doesn't really matter because everybody's really doing the same thing.
Yeah, and thank you for clarifying around meditation too, because I think people think of meditation being like, I need to sit by myself on a cushion for X period of time. And I'm one of those people who get distracted. I love meditation, but guided meditation, because I find that helps me to stay a bit on
I
track. But my form,
yeah,
yeah, and my form
yeah.
of I guess walking in nature is I walk the dogs every day, and I used to do it with a podcast or music in my ears. I simply just chose to have nothing in my ears, and that's my way of connecting to myself, walking with the dogs. I'm so much more present, I'm noticing what's around me, and it was simply just changing my approach to something that I already do.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I tell you, I do a lot of walking because that's really it's part of my spiritual practice and it's
Mm.
also being out in nature and walking out in nature, but it's also part of my exercise routine. Okay.
Yeah.
And I just cringe when I see people either walking or running and they've got earbuds in,
Yeah.
because part of being in nature is having that input of those natural sounds. And like you were saying, being mindful of what's going on around you. And if you're running or walking and you're listening to some podcast or some news or music, a lot of people do music,
Mm.
which can really interfere with your connection to the outside world, and it draws your attention
Mm.
away from what you really want to be attentive of, to be mindful of. So I really really recommend when you're out in nature, get those buds out of your ears and listen to the natural sounds, listen to the peace, listen to the quiet, listen to the sound of the birds, listen to the leaves rustling. That is what's going to help you better than having whatever input. Okay. The idea is to get rid of the input. So the input is coming from within instead of coming from without. And
Mm.
if you got ear pods in, your earbuds in, your input is still coming from the outside. Okay.
I love that. Bold, underline that sentence right there. It was such a simple shift, but it was one of the best things I've done. Like just starting my morning feeling a bit more grounded and at peace and connected with myself. 100%
Yep.
one of the better things I've done.
And
A
I'm
slight
glad
tangent.
I'm going to,
Yeah,
sorry,
sorry.
I'm going to remember that example because, people, when I say that to people, they're all, oh, I'm listening to meditation music or blah, 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 blah. They try to make excuses. And I just go, get rid of the earbuds.
Do it at home.
Yeah, do it at
Yeah.
home, yeah, or do it when you're driving. Like, there's a lot of things like that. If you wanna, listen to podcasts and all that, we spend so much time in our car. Now, there's a good
Mm,
way. That's a good use of your time, okay?
yeah, totally.
But not when you're out in nature.
Podcast or a good audiobook is far better for probably your mental well-being than the radio and the news as well.
Exactly.
And so you meant, and this, as I mentioned before, this could be a slight tangent, but I'd had the pleasure of working with some incredible psychics before, and they've mentioned to me that depending on what phase of life I am, to journal to connect with my guides. And at the journal, apparently my guides requested that I journal because that's the best way for me to connect with this particular one that they mentioned. I'm interested to hear, what role do your guides have in supporting you to uncover or rediscover and reconnect to your authentic self? Is it something that everyone should do, or simply just taking that moment to reflect internally is enough for yourself? Or do we need to have that deliberate connection
Whoops.
to our guides?
I think you need to have the intention and a deliberate intention to connect to your guides, okay? Because they help you with everything. They help you with all of the 3D stuff, and they will also help you in your spiritual journey. And they will also help you with guidance, okay? And directing you sometime because sometimes, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes we get confused and they'll use anything from talking to you directly. I like your um journaling, by the way, because that is a good way. Because often when you're journaling, you kind of actually fall into what a lot of people call automatic writing because you kind of
Yeah.
lose yourself and you just kind of writing, and you'd be amazed sometimes what comes up. Okay. Now,
Mm.
there are people like me, I'm a very verbal person, I'm very audio. And writing sometimes, but not so much. I've never been a big journaler myself. There's kind of two camps. There's the people that are really into that and really good at it. And then there's the
Yeah.
people that are kind of not really for me. Okay. But what I would suggest to those people, if you don't like writing, we have these wonderful devices in our hands all the time. Okay. These phones, and the phones are great. You can just do an audio journal. Okay. And just,
Mm.
if
Yeah.
you're out relaxing, again, if you're contemplating and things come to you, switch on the record, the voice recording on your phone and just record it. And the neat thing is you can take that later and listen and re-listen to it.
Mm.
And I guarantee if you do that, it's just like rereading your journal. Okay, that's the written
Yeah.
the written version of it. Because when yeah, I know you know this, because when you reread your journal, you go, "Oh my God, I didn't even realize I wrote that." And now I get the meaning of that, and that's actually means something totally different than I thought it meant. Okay, the same thing happens with these recordings. When you listen to them again, you're kinda going, "Oh, wait a minute, that I didn't even get that spin or that meaning," or sometimes there's synchronicities. Often there's synchronicities and stuff that you either write or that you record. So
Mm.
that's another option for people. But yes, your guides play major roles. And people are always asking me, how do we connect? How
Mm.
do we connect better
For
to
my
our
next
guides?
question.
And guess what? Yeah, see, I told you I was an intuitive. Then, it's the same protocol as connecting to your authentic self. Okay. So all the
Cool.
things we talked about, well, we've already talked about journaling. We've talked about meditation. We've talked about being in nature, just being quiet. Um, uh, Dreams is another way because often if
Mm.
you're, let's put it this way, if you're kind of not doing anything to really connect with your guides, they want to connect with you. Okay. So a lot of times, if you're not allowing any of those other situations where they can make contact with you, often they'll start coming in your dreams. Okay. So this is another avenue that you can use. And like have a dream journal. And when you wake up first thing in the morning, usually I'll tell you this is a secret. Usually, I found this out through speaking with other people and my own personal experience and talking to my guides. Okay. So we got the
Mm.
trifecta going on. So you normally, if your guides are sending you messages, they will often be in the last dream that you have. Okay. That
Ooh.
dream that you kind of wake up from. Okay. And you're sort of, and sometimes we're not even fully finished the dream. Okay. And it's really important to record that information right when you wake up because a lot of times it will just, it'll be gone if you don't save it. So again, okay, you have two options. You can put your phone, you can have your phone handy and you can record it, which is really easy. But for the lovers of their pens and their journals, you can have your journal beside your bed and just take that out and start jotting. And always remember, even when you're speaking your journal or whether you're writing your journal, you don't have to write in prose. You don't have to write in full sentences. You can just jot down point form stuff. The really important thing is that you capture as many details as possible. Okay. Because then you can get a better idea of what's going on in the dream. And my guides have told me
Mm.
over and over again the most important thing, even more important than the details of the dream, because they're often in metaphorical form. And sometimes
Yep.
some people are better at deciphering that than others. Okay. But the really important stuff is to jot down or to record on your recorder is how did I feel when I first woke up out of that dream? Okay. Our emotions are a huge communication system between our higher selves, our guides, and anything from spirit. Okay. People don't realize this. A lot of the messages that we get are through our feelings or through our body. Okay. A lot of times we'll get body sensations. So that's the same thing. If you wake up with some interesting sensation or something through your body, you want to record that as well, whether you're doing it in writing or whether you're doing it with the recording device. So those are ways that can help you in all those areas.
Just mind blown by that. I haven't heard dreams being interpreted in that particular way, especially around the feeling and what feeling you're getting in your body and what emotions you have when you wake up. I'm definitely going to explore that one because I mean, I'm 34 weeks pregnant at the moment, so I'm having some wild dreams. So I'd be
Wow,
interested to
that
see
is
if
well,
there's any
okay.
connection.
That is
Yeah,
interesting. That is really interesting because I'm just checking. You see me staring off into space. I'm checking.
I love it.
Okay, so you can also get. I thought this was the case, but I wanted to, before I open my mouth, I wanted to make sure. I have thought about this before, but I haven't thought about it in a really long time. I love your question, by the way. This is really good. Um, when a woman is pregnant and you're doing those same things, you can actually get communications from your child's spirit.
How
Okay.
cool.
And since we're on the whole thing around pregnancy, by the way, I want to make something very clear to people. And this is something that all women really, really need to know. is that when you're pregnant, the spirit of the soul, for a better
Mm.
uh, description, the soul of the child goes in and out of the fetus. Okay. It doesn't stay there 24/7. Okay. Through your pregnancy, the soul of the child goes in and out. It stays in for a while, but decides to go back, goes back to the other side, then comes back and goes back. It's not fully attached to the body until that child is born and takes its first breath. Okay.
Yeah.
That's why in a lot of the holy writings, including the Bible, there is such an emphasis put on the breath, because the
Mm.
breath, that first breath when a child is born, is what cements the connection of the soul to the body. And a lot of people think of that silver cord or golden cord. That's when that is attached. Okay. So then that soul is attached to the body. The reason that this is so important is two reasons to women, because women suffer terribly when they have a miscarriage,
Mm.
or they have, some women go through a conscious process of, for whatever reason, and there's no judgment, by the way,
Mm.
on having an abortion, aborting the child. Okay. Because there's lots of reasons that that can happen. And women suffer because they have this belief, this idea so cemented in them by our culture and religion and all that, that the soul of that child is in that body and that they're killing a soul. Okay. That
Yeah.
is not true. Because as I told you, that soul is free to go in and out of the body. So if you have a miscarriage or if you've had an abortion, that the soul of that child that was going to come in to be that child just simply leaves and goes back to the other side to wait for another opportunity. Okay. What is lost is simply the container. It's simply the body of the fetus of the child, not the soul. Okay. So this is a really, really important distinction that my guides have always really, really emphasized, because, there's so many women suffer terribly in both those
Mm.
situations. Okay.
I feel like I need to pull this out of the podcast and put it as a separate message. I think it's so powerful. Like, it can be so incredibly healing. I have some beautiful girlfriends who, yes, have had miscarriages or had to have terminations for medical reasons and stuff. And it just seeing them
Right.
suffer has been so incredibly painful, but let alone that the experience they're going through. So just that reframe and that perspective. Holy shit.
Well, it allows women to let go of that guilt. Okay.
Mm.
Because so many women, regardless of the situation, have all this guilt because they
Yeah.
they literally think they, and the ironic point to this is, the more spiritual the woman, the tendency is the more guilt they also have. Okay.
Yeah.
Because they tend to look more at it from the perspective of they've killed a soul, you know, and
Yeah.
that's not true. Okay. That's
Yeah.
simply not true.
And I loved
So,
how you
anyway,
mentioned that no, I was just saying I loved how you mentioned that the breath connects the soul to the body, because I have some friends who are
yeah.
breathwork instructors too, and I'm like, "Oh my god, it's all making sense." And so I think that's a really good thread to pull on maybe for
Well,
another time as
yes,
well, but
because
connecting the soul to the body.
yes. And that's the reason breath work is so incredibly healing.
Mm.
And you can really raise your vibration with breath work. And that's why. Okay. Because that is breath work is one of the ways that you connect the body, the physical body, to spirit. Okay. Because remember, we said, okay, see, it's all connected. I love when things all come together. Um, and now I kind of lost my thought. I was being so happy with myself. Um, oh, yes. In order to, your body is very important. There's some people that sort of start to get into spirituality, and they kind of get really wound up in all things spiritual and lofty, and they think, oh, the body's just a hunk of meat. That's not true at all. Okay. The body is extremely important. Number one, because the whole reason we're here, remember I started saying that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. Okay. So without these bodies, we could never have that human experience. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, um, is that your body is so important for receiving spiritual information, confirmation through your body. And I'll tell you, as a psychic, I get a huge amount of information and confirmation through my body because
Yeah.
what psychics do is they see things and they feel things, and they're really translators. Okay, and one of my biggest body sensations is in the form of a confirmation. If I translate something absolutely bang on, I can tell because I get this electricity that runs up and down my body, and the strength of that feeling tells me how right on I am. Okay. So if it's very
Yeah.
powerful and I feel it, it's like, wow, I nailed it. Okay. But it also just tells me that I am correct and that I'm not perhaps misinterpreting something. Okay. So that's just one example. Everybody, there's some similarities between people, but again, everybody has their own signs and feelings and the way that they feel things. And really, the only way that you become aware of those is through practice and experimentation. Okay. Because
Mhm.
then your guides learn what's the best way to communicate with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you
100%.
do receive information, you need to um, acknowledge it and you need to take some kind of action, because acknowledging it and taking some action tells your guides, okay, she received the message. This works. We're going to use this again. Okay. If you don't do that extra step, what happens is they go, oh, she didn't get the message. So we got to try something else. Okay. And they'll just keep trying. They'll try. I tell you, they have infinite time and infinite patience. So they will simply keep trying different things and different ways of communicating with you until they find something where you actually react to it and you confirm that you actually got the message.
And it's like, please don't let it get to a point where it needs to be this huge, big, life-changing event. Like your guys are like, oh, for fuck's sake. Okay, we're going to have to put something really drastic here. We're going to have to cause a really dramatic life event for them to get the message because they are just not registering it. Don't let it get to that stage.
Yeah, you don't want to go there, okay? Because I use this analogy. I say your angels and your guides, when they you to know some information, the first thing is they'll like tap you very gently on the shoulder.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
if you get it and you respond, then that's all it takes. But if you don't, then they'll kind of do one of these. Okay. And if you still not getting it, it gets more intense. Okay. Because sometimes they'll literally trip you up.
Yeah.
They'll do something to make you stay still. Okay. And those things are getting sick, uh,
Yes.
breaking or spraining something. Okay. So you don't want those things in your life. Okay. And it's really not necessary because they're doing it simply to get your attention and or to make you slow down enough so that you can actually be aware of they're trying to get through to you.
And so it sounds like really the key to being able to reconnect with your authentic self and with your mission and purpose is around creating space and a quiet environment to do exactly that. And so I'm interested, what's a really actionable step the listeners can do in the next 24 to 48 hours to create that sort of environment for themselves?
Well, the environment that we usually spend most of our time in is our homes. So I suggest people start with their home. And the best way to do that is to declutter because that gets rid of a lot
Yes.
of old energy. Because a lot of people don't understand this stuff actually holds energy. So if you get a bunch of stuff flying around that you never use and that's been there for a long time, that's holding a bunch of old energy. That's who you used to be. Okay. Not who you're becoming. So that's one way. The other way is, smudging and clearing your home. Other things help, like bringing the outdoors indoors. Plants. You can see I've got plants
Yeah.
all over my place. Okay. Things like things that really shift the energy are things like salt lamps. There's a list this
Mm.
long of what salt lamps do, the Himalayan salt lamps. So if you're interested, just Google it and you'll see.
Mm.
They detoxify, they bring energy into the rooms. I literally have, and if you're only going to buy one, guess where you put it? In your bedroom, okay? Because
Yeah,
we
that's what I would have
spend
said. Yeah.
more hours in our bedroom than anywhere else, okay? So I'll tell you
Yeah.
that I spend a lot of time in my bedroom because this is where my computer is set up. And so I have two in my bedroom. And then I have another one kind of in my dining room area. And then I have another one in my living room. Okay. So I have literally
Mm.
four. And these are big soul lamps. They're not little tiny things. They are big soul lamps. So that's something that you can do. The other thing is the atmosphere that you create in your home. Okay. So, the other thing that you can add to your home is music. Okay. When I'm not in
Mm.
session or I'm not doing an interview or whatever, I have wonderful music in the background. Okay. Playing low all the time. And it's Zen, what I call Zen. When I refer to Zen, Zen means calming and uplifting. Okay. So you want something that you don't want to be playing acid rock. Okay. You don't want loud, abrasive music. You don't want to be, and then the other thing is the things you can eliminate. So this leads us right into the things that you can eliminate. You don't want to be
Mm.
watching, listening, or reading. And I don't care whether it's on your phone, your computer, your television, uh, stuff that is violent. You don't want to get
Yeah.
away from the mainstream news. Okay. Years ago, it was more than 10 years ago now. I talked to my guides and I talked to the universe. And I said, look, I'm not watching the news or listening to the news anymore because it was getting so
Mm.
bad. And I come from
Yeah.
a mass media background. I work for a newspaper chain. So it's actually quite funny. And the same thing with reading newspapers and stuff like that, okay? And you just get that stuff out of your life, and you just say to the universe, "If there's anything that I need to know about, please make sure that I find out about it." And it works, by the way.
Yeah.
If there's anything that I've ever needed to know that would normally somebody would get from, mainstream media, bango, I find out about it. Somebody tells me, it comes
Yeah.
across my, Facebook stream, all kinds of weird ways, but it's not from watching the news in any form.
Yep.
Okay. Whether it's written, spoken, listened to, none of that. So you want to get all that energy out of your space. Okay. Just doing these few simple things can change the environment that you live in phenomenally. The other thing to bring in, especially for people who are water based, okay, the plants
Mm.
help the tree people and the water people, and the water
Mm.
features help the water people and the tree people. Okay. And I have several little fountains. Okay. Because running water is way more powerful than still water. That's why the ocean and fast flowing rivers have way more powerful energy than than like a lake or a pond. Okay. That's why it's
Yeah.
good to live near either a large, fast flowing river or the ocean. Okay. The energy is so totally different there. But you can mimic
Yeah.
some of these things, and especially when we're stuck inside, like during the nasty or more inclement seasons
Yeah.
of the year. Uh, Very important to have that stuff in your home, especially if you're in one of the areas that has like heavy winters and stuff like that. If you're living in
Yeah.
Florida or something, it's a little bit different. But for us northern more folks, it's good to have. And by the way, even for people in Florida, okay, just since I mentioned that, it's still a good thing. But it's even more important for the northern climes where we're stuck indoors for months on end, kind of thing. So yeah,
Incredible. There's so much practical tips in there. I love it so much. I'm a water person, but I do love the nature as well. So I'm just like, where can I put some more? I've already got some plants. I'm like, oh, a water feature would be really nice, actually. So I feel like I know what I might be going to do today.
well, the nice thing about the plants is there's a list too. Some lists are 10 and some lists are about 13 different plants, indoor tropical plants. And Google's your friend. Okay. And just Google plants that clean the air. Okay.
Yeah.
This is another thing. The plants take out the toxins because there's so many toxins in our homes, like from carpeting, flooring, paint, all of that. Yeah, we could go on infinitum in terms of the toxins that exist in our home. Okay. So if you've
Yeah.
got plants, number one, they help get rid of the toxins and they also put more oxygen in the air. So that plants are very, very important for being inside. Okay. Outdoor plants are nice too, and I love those too. But in terms of changing your internal environment, they're great.
Well, thank you so much, Laura, for your time. I've had such a fun time chatting with you today. We could have gone on for hours. And I really love the practical steps that you provided. If any of the listeners are keen to learn more about what it is that you do, where can they find you?
Well, you can visit me on my website, which is pretty easy. It's www.spiritspeaks2, the number 2.me. A good way to find information is just email me directly at laurahoorweg@gmail.com. And you can find me in all different, LinkedIn, uh, Instagram. I just try on social media.
All
Okay.
the things.
Especially Facebook. Yeah. All the things, all the things. Yeah. And you can find out information on my website. You can, if you've got questions, you can email me because I do a number of different things. I want to make this clear. Number one, I do private sessions, which is one-on-one over Zoom. I have clients all over the world, and these are sessions to get in touch with your spiritual self. They're also to look at any challenges or anything that you have in your life. Okay, those are one-on-one sessions. I also have an intuitive coaching program. And that is also one-on-one, and that's also done over Zoom. So you can be anywhere in the world. I call it create the life that you really want. Imagine that. Okay. And lastly, this only pertains to local people in the greater Vancouver area. I'm in just outside of Vancouver, BC, Canada. I also do mediumship sessions, group mediumship sessions live with groups of people in their own home. So if you are interested in hosting one of those, shoot me an email and we'll be able to set it up. Now I'm sure that our lovely host is going to have all these things in her
Of
show
course.
notes in terms of how to contact me.
Definitely. Everything will be linked below. Don't you worry about that. But thank you so much again, Laura, for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Awesome. You're a great host, my dear. And I really enjoyed being here.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I hope this was helpful. If you thought of someone while listening to this podcast, I would be so grateful if you could share this episode with them. While you're doing that, please also take a moment to leave a review on the podcast if you haven't yet already. It takes less than a minute and it means so much to me and helps this podcast to reach more people just like you. Thank you so much for that, and I'll see you in the next episode. In the meantime, go out and achieve every dream you have, because actually, you can.